Legendary alternative rock band Melvins just released their 28th studio album called Thunderball. This might be their most experimental album yet. So you might be thinking, how can a band that has experimented in so many genres, including sludge, punk, metal, noise, and weird comedy tracks, even be more experimental? That's what I want to talk about today as I review the new album by Melvins called Thunderball. First, let me give you some background on the album. I won't go deep into the history because if I did this video would be hours long. Let me start with the lineup. The band usually changes the lineup depending on the album. The album in particular has what they call the Melvins 1983 lineup, featuring founding member Buzz Osborne and original drummer Mike Dillard. Then there's Dale Crover, the other drummer who is credited on the album, but from what I read, he didn't play on the album, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. On top of that, they invited some experimental musicians to add some electronic touches to the album, and they are Nee Mitris from Bristol and Void Minds from Atlanta. I couldn't really find any good pictures of them, but that's really what I have. The previous album that had the Melvins 1983 lineup was about 4 albums ago, back in 2021, with Working with God. That was more of a comedy record with these Beach Boys parodies and
yeah, fuck around, round, round, I fuck around, round.
And other weird songs. But after that, they released a few other albums, which include Five-Legged Dog from 2021, which is their first unplugged album, Bad Moon Rising in 2021, which is more of a return to the sludge metal sound, Tarantula Heart in 2021, which is the band doing doom metal, and now Thunderball, which is this weird sludge metal, grunge, and electronic album. Just like the last album, this has only 5 tracks, and it's only 34 minutes long. Songs are of varying lengths, so I will go through that next. The album opens with King of Rome. It's a 3-minute track. It sounds like some classic Melvins. It has a very noisy, grungy type of sound with this hard-driving guitar riff reminiscent of something you would hear from the earlier days. Buzz Osborne sings in this traditional, raspy, almost punk rock style. The guitars have a lot of distortion and feedback, and that gives it a very muddy sound. Next track is a 2-minute track called Vomit of Clarity. It's a weird electronic instrumental track. It reminded me of something you would hear on an early Pink Floyd album. The album More came to mind, as it's just a lot of weird and trippy electronic noise and some sounds that resemble birds chirping. That's really all it is. Just 2 minutes, so it wasn't that bad. They followed up with a longer song on the album, clocks in 11 minutes, called Short Hair with a Wig. This begins with some more of that weird electronic machine music. If you've ever heard of that classic Lou Reed album, Metal Machine Music, it kind of sounds like that. But then you hear the slow and ominous bass guitar followed by some slow and sludgy distorted guitar riffs. So you know the band is going to give you something you would expect. I kind of felt it was a very slow-moving track at first because it didn't really go anywhere in the first few minutes. But it's one of those tracks makes you wonder what's coming next. I thought some of the guitar riffs in the middle of the song sounded pretty cool and grungy. It's one of those tracks you can just zone out to while you listen to it with headphones. I guess there's a reason why the band released the album the weekend of 420, because it would probably be a good song to smoke to if you happen to partake in that activity. I mean, if the weed is good, the electronic touches might make you wonder if part of the song is that chip that's implanted in your brain by the AI, but otherwise, it's just some more Melvin's weirdness. It doesn't really go through many different changes. And in the end, it just kind of sounds like R2-D2 trying to book a flight at the airport or something like that. That's what I imagined listening to it. Next song is called Victory of the Pyramids. It's a song that is 9 minutes and 37 seconds long. It took a different approach than the previous track. The previous one was mostly one long continuous melody. This one goes in a few different directions. At first I'm thinking it's pretty cool. Sounds like some alternative rock from the 80s or some post-punk or new wave. Has this upbeat rhythm and bright guitars. And after about 2 minutes, they begin with a punk rock style bass guitar intro and they play some raw grunge music reminiscent of some of the earlier stuff. This part of the song had somewhat of a normal structure and even some hooks, but it was still part of the weirdness. After about 3.5 minutes, they play a very trippy bass guitar part with some slow and sludgy guitar riffs that are filled with distortion and feedback. This part of the song was very strange. It went on for a few minutes. There were also some strange industrial sounds in the background, added a different layer of sound. The song got weirder as it got closer to the end, and it added more of those electronic sounds. The last track is called Venus Blood. This one is 8 minutes long, and one of those slow building tracks. It begins with a bass guitar, then they add in some grungy guitars and spooky noises. Type of song that plods along, and you know where it's going because you know that with Melvins, you have to expect the unexpected.
That's how we should live our lives.
The song continues with some of that slow grunge music. It doesn't really go anywhere. It just ends abruptly. In conclusion, I thought it was a fun album. It's very heavy. The electronic weirdness gives it a little more originality, but it's also a short album. I think the fact that the last song cuts off and ends abruptly kind of makes you feel that you didn't get the ending that you wanted. But other than that, if you're looking for a typical Melvins type of album where you know it's going to be weird, it's going to get a little grungy, a little experimental, I think it's a cool album to check out. It's pretty much on par with anything else they've done over the past few years. It's not going to be considered to be one of their best albums or anything comparable to their classics from the 90s, but it's good enough if you need something to listen to for 34 minutes and just escape from it all and chill out and relax. My score is 7.5 out of 10. It could go up by the end of the month, but that's my score for now. In the meantime, check out my review of Working with God, which is the last full Melvins review I did and also appropriate as it has the Melvins 1983 lineup. I'll stick right there. Thanks for watching. Please give the video a like. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. And I will see you in the next one.